With millions still out of work and the economic recession lingering, both businesses and job seekers are struggling. It has never been so important to have the right job or hire the right employee. In his new book, Interview, Intervention, Communication That Gets You Hired, recruitment and business consulting expert Andrew LaCivita teaches job seekers the essentials for landing their dream job. He joins me now to discuss how you can communicate your way to a new job. Thanks for being on the program today, Andrew.
Oh, thanks for having me, Deborah.
In the book, you explain that there are 3 key reasons people are successful in their job searches. What are these 3 reasons?
Well, I think it's interesting. Most people think that it's their qualifications, but that's actually not one of the 3 reasons. It's really about how you communicate your message to the employer. It's your ability to accurately articulate your value and your fit. It's the interviewer's ability to accurately decode that message, which is no guarantee, even if you said something perfectly. And it has an awful lot to do in how the interviewer remembers you. So memory even plays a part. So if you really want to strip it down to the 3 key reasons, it's encoding your message, their ability to decode your message, and how they remember you.
So speaking of that remembrance, they tell you not to be too flashy. Don't try to make too much of a statement in interviews. So how can you get remembered but still be appropriate?
Oh, wow. Great question. As a matter of fact, so when what interview intervention does is it not only makes you aware of those 3 reasons, but it also talks with you about how to be appropriate. And a lot of it is really about crafting your stories in a manner that makes them believable and memorable. And there have been a number of studies done about what makes stories believable and memorable, so you can actually give the employer what they need by including certain criteria in the way in which you tell your story. And if you want a kind of a short checklist of what those are, you just need to keep your responses short and simple. You need to be able to capture and keep their attention. You want to certainly talk in their language or their lingo so that they understand the vernacular that you're using. You want to be able to make them believe you. You want them to care about you, and you want them to act on your behalf. There's actually techniques that you can use to include all of those things so that you become believable and you become memorable, and the employer will actually be picking out certain pieces of your stories as you say them. So what the book does is it teaches you how to include those characteristics in the way in which you respond to the employer. It becomes very conversational in nature. You're staying away from things that will help you be remembered in a bad light, and you're including a lot of the things that will help you be remembered in a good light.
Speaking of those things that make you remembered in a bad light, we all make mistakes, obviously. What is the number 1 greatest mistake you see during interviews?
Well, I think a lot of it is, people ask me about, am I bragging? Am I not giving the employer what they need? I think what most people do, the biggest mistake that they make, is they just try to sell themselves based on who they are. That can oftentimes come off as bragging. What most candidates need to do is they need to understand what it is that the employer actually needs and be able to describe him or herself against that employer's needs. It's when you're in an interview, it's the ultimate sales job. You have to sell yourself. The easiest way to do that is to provide the employer with the information that the employer needs to know about you and how you satisfy what it is that they need. When you sell something to somebody, you need to sell to their gaps. You being able to figure out what it is that the employer needs and then telling your stories about how you fit what they need is the easiest way for you to come off as empathetic and trying to help them, as opposed to simply talking about yourself, if that makes sense.
We are just about out of time, but real quick before we go, how can our listeners get a hold of your book?
Oh goodness! Actually, I'm glad that you asked. It's being sold in many countries throughout the world. There's obviously they can get it at retailers like Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Books A Million. But actually, Deborah, I'm willing to give the book away for free to anybody who wants it. It's my gift to try to help get America back to work. I mean, we're donating it to public libraries. We are trying to get it into the universities so that college students have free access to it. So there's many ways that you can get the book. You can also go onto the milewalk website and simply send me an email. if you'd like, and we'll be happy to provide an ebook version of interview intervention for you.
Well, that sounds absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for your insights today, Andrew. A pleasure having you on the program.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Andrew LaCivita, author of Interview Intervention, Communication That Gets You Hired. For information on all of today's top stories, as well as expert commentary on equities, bonds, and currencies, visit RTTNews.com.